Pues sí, en mi casa yo estoy sembrando café. Ya está un poquitico más altico. Ahorita estoy en el colegio, quiero seguir estudiando, ayudarle a mis abuelos. Quiero ser médica, si quiero estudiar medicina.
Diana Bustos lives on a coffee farm in Colombia. The farm doesn't make much money. Diana's chances of becoming a doctor are very slim.
When it's green, it's a berry.
Yeah.
When it's red, it's a cherry. If you open it up, you've got two things that look a bit like coffee beans. So that is what your coffee looked like when it just came off the tree.
From the beginning, we've been processing the plants around us for food and drink. And amongst them all, coffee has been unique. Humans love coffee. We drink 1.5 billion cups of coffee every day.
Café pergamino seco, café verde o almendra, café tostado y molido.
Coffee is the second most widely traded commodity in the world after oil. And that's the trouble. The coffee industry is huge. Coffee drinkers have become mere consumers who don't know where their coffee was grown or who grew it, nor do they care.
Today we're divorced from where we buy the majority of our product. We don't see the conditions that were made, we don't see the people who made them, so we don't empathise with those people anymore, and we just say, oh, they'll make it cheaper, therefore it's good for me.
In the global coffee trade, good for me has worked out well for the coffee drinkers, not so well for some of those who grow it. For them it's led to poverty, disease and conflict. New Zealand has also adopted coffee as the sophisticated beverage of choice. We now cheerfully pay up to $4 for a top-of-the-line latte. We drink almost twice as much coffee as we did 5 years ago. We've got more coffee roasting companies per head than anyone else in the world.
Over 100 roasters in New Zealand, 4 million people, it's pretty crazy really.
New Zealand has probably become a world leader in its coffee, in quality, in the way it's presented, in the cup.
Coffee is an industry that is as complex as the wine industry.
Cupping is a way of determining the quality of the actual beverage.
This cup's quite fruity, isn't it?
And then you just cup it as if you're cupping wine. And by doing this, if you are experienced enough and if you are trained to recognize certain flavors, you can determine the profile in the cup.
We've become world-class consumers, but we also know little or nothing about where our coffees come from.
New Zealand imports about 100,000 bags of coffee. About 10,000 bags, or 10%, is Colombian coffee.
I am in love with Colombian coffee. What I do is I use as a base Colombian and then blend it with others to create a different blend. At least I know the farmers, I know where I'm getting them from. That's a guarantee I have at least.
What do the rest of us know of Colombia? How does the world coffee market work for growers there?
Se vivió una crisis muy profunda la década pasada, fruto del rompimiento del Pacto Mundial del Café. Sucedió en el año 89. En esa época pues había un pacto de cuotas. Al romperse, pues la industria cafetera entró en lo que conocemos como libre mercado. Pues allí eso está gobernado por oferta y demanda.
The big coffee roasters, who between them control about 50% of the world's coffee market, they've been able to force down the prices that they're paying to the mainly smallholder coffee farmers.
Nearly all of Colombia's coffee farms are small, less than 3 hectares. But with over 500,000 of them, it's still the third biggest coffee producer in the world, exporting more than 10 million bags every year.
Due to the fact that we have small pieces of land in a very steep slopes of Colombia, hand-picking the coffee. We cannot compete cost-wise with somebody that is mechanized thousands and thousands of hectares in one farm and so on. So there's only one possibility for survival of Colombian coffee, and that is quality.
But things were about to get even harder for Colombia.
Entraron otros actores que no eran muy importantes a producir café, hubo un sobreabastecimiento de café. Eso llevó a que los precios internacionales se deprimieran, cayeran como nunca antes se habían visto.
Vietnam was one of those countries that caused Colombia's economic turmoil. Encouraged by the World Bank and the IMF, Vietnam planted coffee. Once a minor grower, it is now the second largest after Brazil. That's contributed hugely to an oversupply of coffee.
Debido a que los costos de producción no eran compensados con los precios que se obtenían, muchos productores dejaron de pagar sus deudas, se deterioró un poco la calidad, hubo desplazamiento de caficultores hacia las zonas, las fincas fueron abandonadas, los que no podían irse, ellos lograron subsistir, pero con todas las penurias que eso implica, escasamente lograban sobrevivir.
The natural response to that should be that farmers decrease the amount of coffee that's being produced. It's not that straightforward. It usually takes about 5 years for a coffee tree to mature. And so for them to abandon their crops, it is incredibly risky.
Si en una familia se trata de que llegue un poco de mejor nivel de vida, hay más paz. Si en esa familia hay un poco de paz, hay en la vereda. Entonces, para que haya paz, se necesita también que haya justicia. Justo el productor, justo el exportador, justo el importador. Y justo es quien nos compre el café.
There's new thinking in the world about how countries like Colombia can deal with these volatile movements in the market. One answer growing in popularity is the concept of fair trade.
Fair trade is an alternative model of international trade which just aims to address some of the inequalities in the conventional trading system by sharing the benefits of trade more equitably between the consumers, between the environment, and most importantly with the producer. That price has been calculated to ensure that farmers can cover their costs of production primarily and meet their basic needs. If the international market price falls below the fair trade price, the farmers will always be paid this fair trade price, and so they're protected from the fluctuations in the market. On top of that, they're paid a premium, and that premium is for investment in local community development.
Ese sobreprecio va a motivar a esas comunidades rurales cafeteras a seguir trabajando porque están viendo una oportunidad para seguir creciendo, seguir mejorando y seguir viviendo de ese proyecto que es café.
As well as new concepts like fair trade, exporters from Colombia are sending representatives here to get to know their markets.
Most people in New Zealand have hardly heard of Colombia, so I think it's very important if we can come here and we can give them, we can tell them how the industry works, why our coffee is different, why quality matters. We don't really know atomic coffee. We're just going to meet with them, and our goal will be to start some sort of a business relationship with them.
Our goal as a company is to work towards trying to make sure that the coffee that we buy is sustainably sourced and ethically traded.
And New Zealand is also starting to make the effort to find out more about where its coffee comes from.
Very typical for a fair trade importer to want to meet the growers and vice versa, and to establish trust, and it hasn't been safe or easy for coffee importers to visit Colombia up until very recently.
Hello. Good morning. We'll be going to visit a couple of places that supply us, and just to meet those people and to say I use your coffee and I think it's really good. I'd like to establish some kind of direct relationship with them.
These Kiwis are all in the coffee roasting business, here to meet Colombian growers. All are keen proponents of fair trade.
If you look at what goes into your $3.50 latte, The amount that goes to the coffee grower is only a few cents. The amount that's gone to the growers has increased through fair trade from about 3 cents to about 7 or 8 cents.
Gracias al comercio justo, pues hemos tenido posibilidades de capacitarnos, de ser más integrales a nivel familiar.
Realmente la mayoría de las familias están haciendo es inversión hacia el beneficio del café. Y el otro que se está invirtiendo en la educación de la familia, porque muchos son padres de familia.
What Fair Trade tries to say is, these people are your neighbours, they are the people that live down the road, they're just a wee bit further away and they deserve what we would expect to get ourselves.
Los problemas sociales, los conflictos sociales hacen que de pronto los jóvenes nos vayamos del campo a la ciudad, ¿no? Entonces digamos que dentro del comercio justo para nosotros ha sido bueno, pero ahora le estamos cogiendo como más amor al campo, más amor al trabajo en sí, como nosotros acá somos productores de café.
It's a massive change in their lives. They're able to feed their kids, they're able to send them to school, they're able to afford basic health care and clothes in many situations.
Sobre precios de flor que uno va mejorando, le va mejorando la producción. Logré comprar ese lote allá al otro lado.
People say, well, fair trade's products have a higher price to them. And I say, no, everything's got the same price. It just depends who we want to pay it. So if you pay less for something, someone's paying for it somewhere down the line. They're paying the difference, and normally they're paying in their lifestyle.
Pues me ha parecido muy bueno porque pues ha tenido ayudas, ¿no? Porque más antes no contaba con todo esto.
Aquí sí compramos las estufas y la nevera.
¿Y cómo es la vida con una estufa y nevera?
Pues muy bueno ya, porque pues todo, en la nevera todo está fresquito y ahí pues se cocina rápido.
Esperanza mía es pues seguir trabajando con el café para darle un futuro más adelante, estudio más que todo.
The first coffee cooperative the New Zealanders visit is Sencoic in southwestern Colombia. Sencoic represents 8 different tribal groups and tries to protect them from political violence and to encourage economic development.
Para nosotros es un motivo de alegría poderlos tener aquí y espero que en esta visita puedan conocernos un poco más, que es lo que en realidad buscamos nosotros como comunidades indígenas.
The worst problem facing Sencoic is a depressingly common one for Colombia. The country has been ripped apart by internal war for over 40 years.
Es una situación bastante delicada donde han tenido participación grupos subversivos, grupos paramilitares, grupos de narcotraficantes, que sumado todo pues ha hecho que esa situación haya sido demasiado caótica, ha generado desplazamiento, ha generado pérdida de valores, ha generado pobreza en algunas regiones.
The long-running civil war has left tens of thousands dead and has been described by the UN as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. The brutal conflict pits the state against left-wing rebels and some right-wing paramilitaries. Insurgents launched campaigns to overthrow the government in the 1960s. But since then, the armed groups have been drawn into kidnapping and the illegal drugs trade. Some of them now seem more interested in fat cocaine profits than politics.
As the conflict moves from region to region and as the different actors go looking for places where they can grow illicit crops to finance their wars, this has affected some of the coffee areas, and you will find coffee producers from many regions of Colombia that have been forced to leave their land and go to the cities to find however they can a means of living.
The Colombian government, supported with billions of dollars from the United States, has spent the best part of a decade indiscriminately spraying large areas of farmland with herbicide in an attempt to combat the production of coca, the raw material of cocaine. These aerial sprayings have come under attack from human rights and environmental groups around the world.
La catástrofe que